Hey there, welcome to PopCultX episode 25.
25. Wow.
Oh, I thought you were giving me
25.
some, like, a cue to like the recording.
No, 25. It wasn't like in 5, 4, 3
type stuff.
And use take 2.
Yeah. So yeah, episode 25. Thank you to all the listeners that have joined us thus far. It's been a lot of fun. Talking with Danny on the podcast and our YouTube channel, and we've been very fortunate.
Should we have gotten some balloons or something for like 25?
I know, right? And had a lot of cool guests. So we're going to try to keep that up for everyone and get some interesting subject matter for everyone listening. But let's go ahead and get started on this week.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do this. So one thing I know that we talked, of course, off air, and one thing that we both had in common is that we finally watched Cruella.
Yeah.
On Disney Plus. So I watched it, I think it was last week, and I forgot to bring it up last episode, but I'm glad that I waited because now you got to see it. So what were your thoughts on the movie?
I was really pleasantly surprised. So I didn't have really high expectations going into it. I hadn't really heard a lot about it. I think that has to do with the pandemic and it not being released in the theaters and it being, I think, straight to Disney Plus.
Straight to Disney Plus, yeah.
But I enjoyed it so much. I loved the cast. The cast was amazing. No, so Emma Thompson was amazing in that Grand Dame sort of head of a fashion house. And now I can't think of the main characters. Emma Stone. Emma Stone was amazing as Cruella herself.
She was amazing.
Yeah, I think they did an amazing job with plugging it into that early post-punk era of London. I think that they were probably very inspired by Vivienne Westwood with her style of fashion, deconstructed punk fashion. Which I've always been a fan of Vivienne Westwood. So when I saw that's the kind of fashion that it was going to be, I immediately connected to it. Thought it was really cool. The plot I thought was original because I thought, how are they going to make you be a fan of Cruella, right? Here's a woman that
right. How are they going to make Cruella likable?
Yeah, she wants to kill dogs and wear them. That's the most evil thing that you could possibly think of. And so I thought my thing was, how do you get me to like her? But they did it. They actually made me like the character. They did it in a very interesting way. And I thought that it was very clever. There really wasn't anyone in the cast that I didn't think did it, who I thought they all did a superb job. I thought they were all an amazing cast. I love the UK. I love London. So I love seeing that time being displayed and kind of took me back to when I visited London. And I thought it was just really, really great, really creative, really funny. I loved the dog that played Wink. I thought he was hilarious.
Yeah.
I thought he stole the show. The scene where he's dressed up as a rodent, possum, rat, whatever. I died laughing. It was so funny. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, that was funny. Oh, I enjoyed it immensely as well. I mean, from all the punk-styled outfits that Emma Stone created and wore, the cast was fabulous. Like you said, Emma Thompson was great. Who was the person? I think his name was Mark, who played her kind of
henchman.
Mark Strong, who played the valet. Mm-hmm. I thought he was perfectly cast. I always enjoyed him from the Kingsman movies, where he played Merlin.
Okay, yeah, I know who you're. Yeah, he was a great character.
Yeah, he always has that same type of role. It's the overseer kind of mentor in a way, which is cool. I mean, if he fits it, great, and he did a great job with it. But yeah, I really like the movie, and I really like you said, the plot, how they told the story, where they didn't kind of try and reshape who Cruella was, with Maleficent, how they they had to change that narrative big time, I think.
Yeah.
But with this, they showed how she came from a kind of insane line, I guess you would say it, because her birth mom was really out there and crazy. and it shows that she has all those seeds planted, but that she is trying to do better for her, like, quote unquote adopted mom.
Yeah.
So, but how those reigns come apart, and when her, was it Ella, dies supposedly, and then Cruella lives.
Yeah.
So it's plants a lot of seeds for, I would say, a sequel to see how she can transition from where she is to what makes her even more evil. But do kids want to see that? I don't know.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good question. Is like, is that movie a kid's movie? Like, I think that it's kind of aimed towards adults in a way. I think that the target demographic, I don't think, is like 8 or 10-year-olds. Although certainly, I'm sure that there's a lot of young girls that have, really good fashion sense that were really into it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. The fashion was like spot on. I loved all of the entrances that Cruella, for listeners who haven't watched the movie, there's a moment when the character Cruella is being introduced to everyone else in the movie, and she makes these really grand entrances to upstage this other existing fashion designer.
Art pieces, right?
Yeah, it was. I mean, like I said, if you're familiar with Vivienne Westwood, it's very similar to her aesthetic. Also, like Alexander McQueen, John Galliano, all these like really where they take very couture looking pieces and then like deconstruct them and make them look really punk. And I've always been a really big fan of that. I've always loved that aesthetic, and so I loved what they did with the fashion. And it had so many lines, like one-off like zingers that Emma Thompson said throughout the movie that was very similar to Devils Wear Prada, where it's like this head, female badass that is really cutthroat, and so you kind of admire her on one side because you as she says, you have to be cutthroat and you can't care about anyone else if you want to succeed. But then at the other side, it's like, well, at what cost? Are you cutting out your family, your friends? And, are you doing harm to other people to try to reach your goal? Which, we find out, maybe Cruella does that, maybe she doesn't. But I thought it was really great. And I think they have announced that they are going to do a sequel.
Oh, did they? Interesting.
So I'm really excited to see that. I saw it last night, right? And so I tweeted about it. And so I knew that they had created Marvel, I think, did, because it's owned by Disney. They did a comic, a manga, and so I ordered it last night, and it arrived this morning. It was like super fast. Like I watched the movie late last night, and it already arrived on the doorstep. And so it's kind of cool. It's this, manga style retelling of that story of how Cruella becomes Cruella. So it's really cool. I thought I'm really a big fan. I really liked it a lot. I'm probably going to watch it again soon because I think there's probably a lot of things that I missed as far as being able to see or pick up some of the, some of the fashion scenes were really great. A lot of the details to the jokes, because of their accents, it was a little bit hard for me to understand one of Cruella's friends, which is part of why it's funny. But, I'm sure there's some parts of it that I missed that I think would be even funnier if I understand what he was saying. So I'm definitely going to watch it again. But yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised. I think of that genre of them remaking, you mentioned Maleficent, or like the retellings of those like old children's classics. I think this is probably one of the best ones, I think. I
would agree.
Yeah. Like I think Maleficent's a close second. But what's another one? Like The Huntsman and the one where it's supposed to be Snow White.
Yeah, the Snow White and the Huntsman or whatever.
Yeah,
that wasn't really Disney. So are we sticking to just the Disney versions of them, or
if you
are we branching out
to Disney itself? Like Aladdin, I thought was a miss. I didn't think that one was good at all.
What about the Jungle Book? I enjoyed the Jungle Book.
I thought the Jungle Book was really good, actually. And then there was another one too, right? Aladdin,
the Lion King.
Yeah, I haven't actually seen the Lion King. Did you watch it?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's. I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't comparing it to the original. I'll go with the original, but it was good. It wasn't bad. I mean, I also enjoyed Mulan too.
Oh, Mulan was really good too. So I think that
That was a little
there's
different.
two kind of sets of movies where it's like the prequel where you're learning and it's like an original story. So Cruella, Maleficent,
Like the origin
and then
story
there's
type
like
thing.
a remaking in live action. So Mulan,
That's true.
Aladdin,
That's true.
Lion King. Of those three, Mulan is definitely the best one. I think of like the live action version, and then the origin stories. I think Cruella is just like slightly, I think, better than Maleficent. I love Maleficent, but the originality of the story and there's more that appeals to me. I think the fashion aspect of it, it being in London, the humor, it just kind of edges it over the top for me. If I had to pit them,
I agree.
two of them against each other,
put them in a death match.
Yeah, so it was really good. Like I don't find myself on Disney Plus often, unless there's something that comes to Disney Plus first, like Mulan did. I think we actually paid to watch Mulan early.
Okay.
And then I haven't caught up on the What If series, but the next episode, I believe, is the Marvel Zombies, which we talked about last week, and so I think that'd be really interesting for us to see because I love that sort of spin on Marvel tales, if you will, of the zombie heroes and how that plays out.
That sounds interesting. I've been watching the What If.
Yeah.
And last week episode with the Doctor Strange one it got dark. It was really dark with especially with because Doctor Strange in the time zone, it's kind of like the when if you can't get it right, go back and repeat it, and you repeat that till you get it right, but he could never get it right and never save his I can't even think of her name, the one Rachel McAdams voices.
Yeah.
But he can't save her, and it just eats him alive, and it just. I won't ruin it for you if you do want to go watch it, but it's probably one of the darker ones of the What If series. Yeah. But I enjoyed the T'Challa Star-Lord one. That was really fun. Yeah, you got to go watch that one. If you see any of them, that one was fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it would be fun, but it sounds sort of the plot or the question of what if. It doesn't really make a good storyline for me. Like, what if he became Star-Lord? It's like, whereas like if you're really taking a character and like really changing it up, like Doctor Strange, with that storyline, or Captain America, what if I forget her name, Agent Carter,
Peggy Carter,
Captain Carter. Yeah. That's like interesting, but just to say like. It's almost as if like, well, what if the Falcon becomes Captain America? Like, it's cool, but it's not really like a big shocker or like a big like spin. It's just like, oh, it's cool. Like, I'm trying to think of like what could be another, what if Rogue became, I don't know, Gamora? Like, okay, yeah, but like, is it really something that's like people are dying to find out what would happen if that were the case? I don't know, but I have to watch it I guess, before I pass a lot of judgment on it. I love Black Panther, obviously, a good character, but him becoming Star-Lord, I don't know.
It's good. You go watch it. Yeah. Go watch it and then report back. Yeah, you'll see. It's been really. I mean, they are hit and miss. I didn't like the first episode. Second episode was a Star-Lord T'Challa one, and it was really good. Yeah. Third episode, I don't remember what it was. So that tells you that right there. Oh, the Hulk and Black Widow, I think it was. So one of the episodes was all the Avengers, the original Avengers from like the Marvel MCU Avengers were getting killed off.
Oh, yeah. What if
so Black Widow had to go hunt them,
right?
Yeah, exactly. What if there were no Avengers? So that was interesting, and it was Hank Pym. Sorry, did I just spoil it?
No,
doing all the.
When it comes to comics, it's like you can't really spoil anything because it's like they've taken from previous comics. It's hard to really surprise me, and it doesn't really ruin it when I hear endings or the surprise. Like Taskmaster in Black Widow, that it did genuinely surprise me because I didn't know that they were going to go that route. And no one spoiled it for me. No one said anything on Twitter. But had I known that it was like, it really wouldn't have ruined it for me because what I was attracted to of Black Widow, or what I actually became a fan of, was the sister. I think the sister stole the whole movie.
She did.
So I'm like,
I
Taskmaster
agree.
was
Florence
like,
Pugh did a
and I wasn't
fabulous
going
job.
to see the movie to see Taskmaster. I've like never been that big of a fan, but you know, I'll have to check it out. The other thing on Disney Plus that I think that is kind of like I've saw is on, but isn't calling out to me to watch it, is the Billie Eilish concert. Did you get a chance to check it
out? Yeah, I did. And you're right. It was there and it was calling out to me because I'm a big fan of her new album, Happier Than Ever, especially the title song, Happier Than Ever. I think that's a brilliant song, sung in like two parts. So like the first half and second half, and they're totally how they contrast with the style and the feeling of it. So I was really looking forward to seeing this, and it was directed by Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, really?
So I was like, oh, cool. Really? Yeah. So he directed it, but I think he directed like, okay, let me backtrack a little bit because I get ahead of myself all the time. I always say that I go off on tangents. The movie was shot in Los Angeles, so it's called Happier Than Ever, A Love Letter to Los Angeles, which is fine. I hate LA, but that's a different story. And it was shot, I guess, during the pandemic at the Hollywood Bowl. So it was a concert, which is fine. And how can I put this? So the most interesting part of the movie itself to me was the snippets in between songs. So it was like when she wasn't singing was the best part of the movie, which was kind of sad because I was really hoping for like a Michael Jackson Moonwalker type of movie where the songs help and the videos came together and they helped propel the story along the lines for whatever it was telling. But this was just a concert sung to an empty Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, wow.
So it was okay for like maybe one or two songs, but every single song that's all you had was just a camera rotating around her and the lights coming down, and it was just at the empty Hollywood Bowl, which was kind of a letdown to me.
Yeah.
Considering I really had big high hopes for it, especially with my, like I said, the liking of Robert Rodriguez, I think is one of my favorite directors. Yeah. And I don't think he did the concert portion of it. I think he did the snippets in between. That being said, there was one track that was an animated number where it's a spoken word called Not My Responsibility. Mm-hmm. So it was really cool because you see her walking down like this tunnel, an animated version of Billie Eilish, walking down a tunnel. And like there's this red and black loops going over her. And then it's all to that spoken word track. And that was really cool. Mm-hmm. That was like probably the best part of the movie for me. So if you go watch it, I think it's right in the middle. Just watch that part, the Not My Responsibility track. Just ignore everything else because it's all, to me, was all just a throwaway. I don't know. I hate to say that, but it really was. Yeah. It wasn't that great. It was really a letdown. And I mean, I could have just turned off the TV and listened to the album and I would have had more enjoyment.
The thing with Billie Eilish, I always want to call her Billie Eyelash, is that I like some of her songs. I like her songwriting. Mm-hmm. I believe it's her. She writes the lyrics, right? And her brother does the music.
Her and her brother, I think, yeah.
So I think she's very talented singer, songwriter. I personally, I think for me to become like a really big fan of an artist, I either have to really connect to their lyrics, or I'm a fan of their like talent as a vocalist, like their instrument being their voice. Mm-hmm. So someone like Christina Aguilera, which I've talked about how much of a big fan I am of hers, who I saw at the Hollywood Bowl this year. With Billie, there isn't any moments that I think her voice, where I'm drawn to her performance or I really am amazed by it. It's so understated and so. She's not a belter. So it's not really my style of singing that I like. There are some groups that I think that she epitomizes that style of like very low key. I think of like groups like Portishead. There's another group that I was just listening to the other day, Tricky, and I I forget the band. Anyway, during that whole like trip hop phase of like English music that was coming out like 95, 96, like I was a really big fan of that. And where they never really belt the music out, right? They're always very like low key. But I'm really attracted to their lyrics and I'm really attracted to like the sounds. I think with Billie, it's just like I'm not her target audience. Like maybe if I was like a young girl, I would. And I've said this about like some other singers that are really popular right now, that it doesn't appeal to me. I don't take away from their talent. I think that she's very talented, but I just don't. It doesn't connect with me, and so I probably won't. That's why I didn't watch that concert, and why I probably won't, rush to go see it. Just because it's not anything that really makes my heart beat any faster. It just like, I'll see it. Like if you recommend that little animated piece, or if there was something that really stood out, or if she did something that was very amazing that everyone was talking about, I would, force myself to watch it. But like I said, there's maybe one or two songs of hers that I really like. When I go to her performance, like she's not someone I would even go see live, because she's not, I don't know. Like it's hard. Like, I don't know, like sometimes her singing style just kind of gets on my nerves, because it's like so low key, and it's like, she's really going to belt it out this time. Oh no, she's not. She's going to be listening to the whole song.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. And that the one song, my favorite song is the title track from that. It's just Happier Than Ever. Yeah. And I think that song she built out at the end of that one a little bit. So if you go listen to that track.
I want to hear that. And I don't want to say that it's because I want to hear her talent, because I think that there's different types of vocalists, and you don't always have to be like a Beyonce or Aretha Franklin style singer and have these like big vocals. I am a fan of that. That's like typically what I like to listen to when I'm listening to just someone who's a singer. But someone like that, I like to be surprised, like sometimes in like this style change a little bit. Someone like Kesha, who when she first came out, I didn't really like her a lot. I liked some of her songs, but her vocal style like really grew. And then I was like, oh, she can actually sing. And I've seen her perform a couple times, and she's a really great performer. And she's a really earnest performer. Like I think she really believes in what she's singing and her lyrics. And even though she's sort of like a fun pop star, I think she has some like really cool, like meaningful lyrics to some of her songs. And so like I'm waiting for that moment from Billie to have like a really like a song that I'm like, wow, like that really hit me. Like the lyrics and the vocals, just she killed it. But so far the vocals are like, they're cool, like the beats are cool, but she's not really like knocking it out of the park for me as of yet. But it may be that she's
go listen,
and it's okay.
It could be.
Yeah,
Go listen to Happier Than Ever and read the lyrics.
Okay. I'll have to check it out, because I haven't listened to that album, because I just like, kind of whatever. There's another band that I think of, like Mazzy Star. I don't know if you know who they are, but
Fade Into You, yeah.
And she's very low key. Hope Sandoval, like she's not a belter. She's very low key, like very like the Velvet Underground, very like lo-fi. And I love her voice and I love the lyrics. And I'm not expecting her to come out and like start belting it out. Right. But I am a fan of that. And so it's not that I'm necessarily against people that are just chill, like whatever, when they perform or when they're singing. There's just something about maybe it's also the media like putting so much on her, like she's the next big thing, and like she's so talented, she's so like this, that, and the other. And it's like when I heard her, I'm like, okay, it's good, but has she, like, I don't know, she just hasn't really done anything for me to think that she's earned the amount of attention that she's got. But
I think it's to what you said, that you're not the target audience. Like my nieces, they're 12, 13. They love her. Yeah. Know every single one of her songs word for word. So it's like, okay, so that's not for us, I guess. Yeah. But I think I didn't really listen to her until she got like a ringing endorsement from Dave Grohl. And then when he said that she's the next, big thing, I was like, oh, really? He said that. Yeah. So that's someone who I respect, from Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters. I was like, if he's saying that, there must be something there, so I can go give it a try.
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely interesting.
So.
I'll give her that. So, well, I guess the jury's still out for me. I'll have to check out her new album, listen to the title track, like you said, and maybe next week I'll be her biggest fan and like dye my hair green in her honor. You remember all like the little girls are like going to dye their hair green because of her that like highlighter green. Yeah, probably not, but it might happen.
That is so true. I want to see that.
Things that
we should do
connect
that.
with me that I am a fan of. I finally got to see Shang-Chi. I always say it wrong. I want to say Chang-Chi or
Shang-Chi.
Yeah. Anyway, and when I say finally, I'm just like, because there's been so much hype about it and like it, about to come out, and like I've been really excited about, obviously, like MCU, comics, all of that. Not a really big fan of the actual comic character, like because he's sort of like the world's greatest martial artist, which I'm like, okay, like I'm a big fan of like
good for you.
Yeah, like we were talking about last week with our guest, and saying like how he's kind of tired about writing about like these godlike fantasy heroes. I like that. That's my gig. Like I love the godlike.
So you wanted to say, no, you're wrong.
Yeah, like flying, can shoot, lightning bolts, can't be killed. So when you get a character that's like sort of like Shang-Chi, which is like, oh, he's really good at throwing punches and kicking, I'm like, like that's not really that exciting. That's like almost realistic. But this movie is really good. I highly recommend it. Talking about really good cast, the cast is amazing. There's a lot of stars in it that I wasn't expecting to be in it. When I walked in, I knew like the lead characters, but Michelle Yeoh is in it, and I'm a huge fan of hers. I think she is one of like the all-time most like beautiful, graceful, like elegant actresses of like all time. I think she has this. I could watch her perform like martial arts on screen, like. It's just like it's like ballet dancing. It's like an art form the way she does it. She's so graceful, but powerful. And the two leads, Awkwafina, and I can't say the male actor's name.
Is it Simu Lee?
Yeah,
is that how you say it?
I'll go with that. But I think he did a great job with bringing Shang-Chi or Sean. And there's a joke in the movie because. Shang-Chi is like escaping his past, and he comes to San Francisco, and his best friend is a character played by Awkwafina, and then he has to tell her that who he is, and he says, oh, my name is Shang-Chi, and she's like, wait, you went into hiding and you changed your name from Shang-Chi to Sean? She's like, that's literally like a girl named Gina changing her name to Gina. and Awkwafina, it definitely like close to stole the show. I wouldn't say stole the show, like the limelight, but I wasn't a big fan of Awkwafina coming into the movie, but I am now. She's really funny.
Really?
Now like a lot of
she's hilarious.
Like one-liners in the movie. Her character has a really cool story arc. I don't want to ruin it for you because there are things that I think are really surprising about the movie that I didn't expect and I didn't know walking into it. So I don't want to ruin that moment for you. But there's some really cool things in it. The martial arts is amazing. Kind of expecting that obviously if you're doing a martial arts film that it better live up to that hype, and they did. There's some really good comedic moments, so it's still within that vein of like MCU movies. And so it was really good. I'm now a fan of that. I do have the new release that they did of Shang-Chi that they released a couple months ago to tie into the movie. And I got like the first issue. So I might go back and collect some other issues of him to see what what his character's all about. But they did such a great job. You're going to love it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure I will. I'm a huge fan of that genre, I guess you would say. One question though that I had for you, since this shouldn't give away too much. How does it lead into, or does it even lead into the Eternals?
It's not. It doesn't really have a connection, I don't think.
Oh, it doesn't? Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I was wondering
there is. Obviously, it's not a surprise to you to know that at the end of the credits, there's like an end credit scene. Yeah, it's kind of like a mysterious, like I'm not that big of a fanboy to know like exactly what they were hinting at. I think that it probably goes more into uh, Doctor Strange, his new film, with like the whole like multiverse and all of that. I think that it's leaning more towards that. So I think that the Eternals aren't necessarily connected to this outside of like it being the same universe, I believe. But I did see like on the big screen the Eternals, and it looks so good. I'm so excited to see it. And it's that feeling of, I think that a lot of people are now experiencing, is seeing like people that represent them in the MCU. And so like I'm really happy that people who are Asian American or just Asian can see themselves in a superhero light. The representation in this film and the storytelling and their use of Chinese culture is so good, and they did such a good job of interweaving the Chinese culture into the movie, and it not being done in like a patronizing or cheesy way. It's a really great job of what they did. I when I went to go see it, like I think that there was one thing that I kind of nitpicked, and when we talk about like race or ethnicity and like stereotypes, like one of the stereotypes about Chinese people or Asians is that they're very smart, that they perform really well in school. And so there's to kind of give you a little bit of like an intro into the characters, Shang-Chi and Awkwafina's characters are sort of like lovable losers. Like they are valet drivers. So it kind of talks about how immigrant parents have high expectations for their American-born children, and how sometimes you can feel that you're not living up to those expectations because they want you to be a doctor, they want you to be a lawyer, and the two characters are meeting with some of their friends who I believe she's a lawyer, and she's telling them like, oh, Aquafina's character, like you got your degree from Berkeley, and Sean, you have your degree. And I would have liked for them to have left that out and just show two Asian American kids who don't perform really well in school, that didn't go to get an Ivy League education, because it's still saying that that's even though they choose not to utilize their education, in this particular movie, it's still living up to that stereotype of like both of the characters have Ivy League educations, or I think Berkeley is Ivy League, right? Or if not, just like a top tier school. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily like breaking stereotypes. It's kind of living up to that stereotype. So I would have kind of liked to have seen it like, it's cool to not have a degree, not go to college, even though that's sort of the message. And then they have these like really great heroic paths, obviously, because he becomes Shang-Chi and he's a superhero and like a future member of the Avengers. But it would have been nice to like just be like, yeah, you can be like an everyday man, and there's honor and respect about just being a hardworking, honest person. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like you don't have to have that caveat.
I see what you mean.
Of like, oh no, but it like you're still good because you got a degree from Berkeley. Like, no, just leave it at like you're just good. Like you're good. Your parents' children and they love you. Period. Like you don't have to have that education piece. I get what they're saying, and like they want to have like good representation for Asians, but like I think that just like that little bit of a twist I thought would have been really cool to like have Awkwafina's character like not have gone to college, not have aspirations to have, an advanced degree and be like overly educated, but be just a really cool character that has value and self-worth because she has other strengths and talents outside of an academic realm. So I don't know. That's like the smallest nitpicking that I could possibly do.
The smallest nitpicking, yeah,
because it's such a good movie. It was just like that little piece. I was like, it would have been cool for them just to be valet drivers. Period. Like, ended at that. But it's a really good movie, and like I said, it's really great that the Asian community now has, similar to Black Panther with the African American community or Black community.
Right.
They have like their heroes. I'm very excited for them to introduce more Latino characters. So, Salma Hayek in the Eternals, America Chavez is going to be in the Doctor Strange. movie. And so I'm excited to see some representation for my particular culture coming up. And because there's definitely room for all of us at the table. Like there's so many characters that have so many like cool stories and they all interweave, and like everyone should have their time in the spotlight or have their time in, you know, the storytelling and have their own story told. So I'm really excited about that. America Chavez and the Eternals with Salma Hayek. And then I think there's rumors of the Falcon being portrayed by a Mexican American as he is in the comics. So I would really love to be able to see that. I also would be able to love to see Ghost Rider has a version of Ghost Rider of, you know, Spirit of Vengeance that's played by a Mexican or a Chicano, and he's sort of like a lowrider, sort of hot rod Ghost Rider.
Oh, that's cool.
And so that would be really cool. He was actually a character on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then it got canceled, and they were going to give him his own spinoff on Hulu. And then when Disney bought out and, you know, all of that happened, they decided not to move forward. So we were like very close to having like a Latino Ghost Rider having his own show. I thought that would have been really cool. So I'm still like kind of holding out for like us having our moment of like Black Panther or Shang-Chi. They're also, I'm getting excited here, but they're also going to be in the new Black Panther. Namor is going to be portrayed by a Mexican actor. And I think he also casted another Mexican actress to play another character that from like the Atlantis Namor sort of legend. And so I think they're going with like maybe with like an indigenous Mexican cast to portray the Atlanteans, which would be really cool. And so that's, you know, I'm excited for that as well, to see Namor portrayed by a Mexican actor. So I, you know, I'm ready for us to have our hero as well. So that's something I'm looking forward to from the MCU.
I'm looking forward to seeing my, you know, Mexican American, Russian, Jewish superhero. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Can you find someone in the comic book realm for me there, Gabe?
Mexican Jewish. That's like very specific. So I'd have to do some research. I'm pretty sure. So there are some characters that are half Mexican and half Caucasian. So I'm sure they could make them Jewish, but I don't know if, like, according to canon, if they are specifically Jewish. But there are a lot of Mexican Jews. So I think that would be kind of interesting and educational for people to see that, you know, a lot of Jewish immigrants ended up in Mexico, and you do have a lot of practicing Jewish Mexicans, and, you know, not all, you know, we're not all the same. So I think that it'd be interesting to show that particular storyline and have a super Jew mix. Or Jew mix.
Super Jew mix. Jew mix, yeah. Which was my nickname in high school, Captain Jew mix.
Well, what was it? Jew mix?
Jew mix. You know the drink, Jew mix? Yeah, that was one of my nicknames in high school. So yeah. Jewish Mexican, Jew mix, yeah. Great.
I would have gone with
Thanks for bringing those memories up.
Instead of Jew mix.
I am Mex Jew.
Mexu.
Yeah. Mex who?
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Shang-Chi. It looks really good. I mean, from what I've seen and what I've heard, and it just looks fantastic. I'm sure I'm going to love it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, make sure you see the end credits, because there is an end credit scene. Of course, that's after like 15 years of MCU movies. That's not a surprise by now. Like, you've come to expect it.
Well, I mean, speaking of that, you think now with every movie, you people sit and wait. Is there an end credit scene? Is there?
Yeah.
Yes, no. I mean, it come to a point where, like, at the end of a movie, especially a new movie, I'll look up, does this movie have an end credit scene before I leave? And thanks a lot, MCU, for making everyone, which I guess is good, making everyone watch the credits again. Yeah. So,
and well, it's funny, whenever I go to the movies, like, everyone like turns to look at me and like, do we have to wait, Gabe? Like, is there an end scene? And I'm like, I don't know about this one. But typically I know. Black Widow, I think I was surprised by. The end credit scene. Like, I didn't know about it. I didn't really know a lot about Black Widow going into it, which I'm kind of surprised that, like, I'm glad that there's not a lot of spoilers going on Twitter right now. Like, I don't think, like, I saw a lot of spoilers when it came to Shang-Chi. So I'm glad that people are like fine, maybe hopefully learning to respect, at least give us a week or 2 weeks to catch up to the movie before you like ruin it for us.
I know a lot of the creators, like Edgar Wright, I think, was on Twitter and asked his fans. He sent out a letter. I guess they did the premiere of his new movie Last Night in Soho at the Venice Film Festival. And I think they sent out a letter to the attendees, or he tweeted it, that, please, for the respect of your fellow film goers, don't spoil the movie for them. Yeah. Refrain from, because I guess there's a lot of stuff in there that he doesn't talk about in the trailer that's really surprising. Yeah. It's going to be really cool. So that's another movie I'm looking forward to. That'll be right up your wheelhouse because it's set in 60s London. Well, time travels to 60s London. Nice. So The Last Night in Soho. So
is that the one
where, be an interesting one.
It's two girls, right? Is there two actresses that?
Yeah, she's like a fashion designer.
Yeah.
And then
I'm looking forward to that.
She goes back and gets the design from the 60s. Yeah.
That one looks really good. The actress's name, but she's actually, I think she's Argentinian. So she's Latina.
Yeah, I think so. It's like Alicia Taylor-Joy or something like that.
She has that like very unique look. She played Magic in New Mutants, and I haven't watched that yet. Have you watched it on HBO?
Right. Yeah, New Mutants. I liked it.
I still haven't seen it, which is odd because I couldn't wait.
Anya Taylor.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to see it in the movie theater. It was almost like it was cursed. It took like years for it to come out, and I thought they did so good with the casting, and I was really excited to see it. And then when I finally got the opportunity to see it on HBO Max, I was like, I guess.
No, go watch it. It's surprisingly good. I mean, when I saw it, I was like, okay, cool. Maybe it's like what leads up to New X-Men or what. I wasn't too familiar with it. So I was like, cool, New Mutants, I'll watch it. And it's more leaning on like the horror side of films, which is cool. But it was really good. I enjoyed it.
The only thing that makes me hesitant is that I actually really love the New Mutants. They're like one of the books that I loved growing up. Like it's like a spin-off, the young X-Men, if you will. Particularly Magic was one of my favorite characters. And Wolfsbane and the girl that turns into a wolf, and Mirage being like one of the few like Native American indigenous people like superheroes, kind of going back onto representation. Like that's why I love the X-Men so much, is that there are so much diversity in their cast of characters. And so like I do like kind of hold all X-Men and like X-Men related movies like kind of close to my heart. So I'm like, I don't want to see it and be disappointed, but like at the same time, like from I've heard, Anya Taylor-Joy is really good in the movie. Like she was perfectly cast. So I do want to see it for that.
Her character Rasputin, it was really good.
Yeah. So I'll have to check it out. But so far, haven't.
Well, I've been on an old movie kick. So I went back and I watched the original John Carpenter's Halloween,
nice.
The 1978 version. I've never seen that, believe it or not. Yeah. It was like, not because I was scared. I mean, movies don't really scare me, but it's just something that, it's where I feel like if you don't watch it in like your teenage years or when it's, I guess hip to watch it, you probably never get around to it. So I just, on a whim, it was on I think Shudder, that horror channel, subscription channel, whatever. And so I got their free trial, went and checked it out, and it was good. I mean, it's made in 78, so the storyline's a little, compared to nowadays, it's a little, flimsy and plot holey, but what I really appreciated was the camera work. So the cinematography and the way the handheld cameras are running around, and I really enjoyed that part of it. So the filmmaking portion of it, as more opposed to the actual storyline of it, I guess you would say. So it's something that I would love to have been a part of making, as opposed to just watching. Yeah. So I don't know. It was enjoyable.
Yeah.
The music was awesome, of course.
What's that?
The music was awesome, of course.
Iconic.
The theme
like,
song.
The music is iconic.
Yeah.
I think that set up like Jamie Lee Curtis as like the icon that she is. That character is like, she's been playing it for like decades now. And I think they're doing a new Halloween story where she's finally like, okay, this is it. Like, we're going to get rid of Michael Myers. And it's like, eye roll. Are you really going to get rid of him this time? Like, I think he's died or like.
Didn't you say that the last time?
Yeah, like I swear there's been like 3 or 4 movies where it's like the older Jamie Lee Curtis saying she's going to get rid of him and like drag him to hell, and then it's like, oh, here he is again. So I probably will still watch it because I am a sucker for all those like 80s, like, you know, late 70s, 80s horror movies like Jason, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, all of those. Like, I do love them. Typically for October, what we try to do is like do one horror movie every night for October until like Halloween. We're not always successful because obviously we get busy but we try, and then we like revisit like some really old ones and some favorites. But Halloween is probably definitely one of the favorites, and it's like a classic. It's iconic.
It really is. Yeah.
You know, it's Michael Myers. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. Freddy Krueger, Jason. Those are like the 3 like most iconic. And then, now they have like the new ones like from Saw or, all the new like young kids have like their own icons, but I don't think they'll ever surpass Jason, Michael, or Freddy.
Well, what about Chucky? He's getting his own new series soon, I think, on the Sci-Fi Network.
Yeah, and he has like that new like Karen hairdo. It's like iron and flat and like so I was like, why did they give him my Karen haircut?
That looks interesting. I mean, the reboot of that movie was kind of cool with a Bluetooth toy and everything, for this generation. Yeah. So that was interesting. But I think the original like Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky, those like sequels were just so comedic that they were, I don't know, they were just a gore fest. But it was humorous.
I think that Bride of Chucky is my favorite of all of them, and I just love Jennifer Tilly, like in her character, it's she's so funny, awesome, her voice and all of that. So I that's probably my favorite of that whole series.
I also went and saw a movie that's now almost 30 years old that was released in 93 with Robert Downey Jr., pre-Iron Man days, back, I think, probably made between rehab stints. I don't know. The movie Chaplin. Now, I'd never seen Chaplin. I mean, I know of the movie, and of course, I know of Charlie Chaplin, the original actor who was at the groundbreaking of when the cinema scene was just starting in ground floor. So it was really interesting to see. The best part of the movie that I thought was really cool is that they got Charlie Chaplin's actual daughter, Geraldine. They cast her as the role of Chaplin's mother, Hannah, in the movie. So I thought that was really cool. It was like a nice nod to the family. Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. The movie was interesting. I learned a lot about Charlie Chaplin because it was taken in part from his autobiography. So, it was straight from the horse's mouth. So, I mean, I'm sure he kind of Hollywood upped it for his book, but still, it was straight from him. It wasn't conjecture. It was straight from what he experienced. Though the scene that really got me, though, have you seen the movie?
I haven't. But let's see if I can guess before you tell me. Let me see if I can guess Charlie Chaplin's history just based off of what I know about early Hollywood history. 1, was he abused? 2, was he an alcoholic? And 3, did he die penniless?
Okay. Abused, maybe. He was, I think, born in the late 1800s, so 1890. So he was penniless to begin with life. His mom was a vaudeville performer, booed off the stage and never returned. And he kind of took up the mantle for her. So I don't know if he was abused there. He did like young women. Yeah. So I don't know if he did the abusing. Hollywood directors and actors of that time, they like their starlets, I guess. And that played into kind of his downfall or fall from grace and why he got kicked out of the country during the McCarthy Red Communism witch trial era.
Oh, wow.
But he didn't die penniless, from what I could tell. He was awarded the special award at one of the Academy Awards. So he came back to America for that. And it seemed like he lived a full life. He died at age, I think, 88, it said. grandchildren from his last wife that he had, and it seemed like I don't think he would have any complaints. But the scene that really got me was, okay, so he met his first love of his life when he was performing in vaudeville act in Chicago area, I think it was, or Montana, somewhere in that Midwest. And he proposed to her. He was in love with her, and he wanted to take her out west when he got called to become the new Hollywood silent film star. And she said no. And he always stuck with wanting to remarry her. And it was always his thought of going back to England, where they both were from, and finding her and marrying her. But he learned on a trip back to England to visit friends that she had passed away. No one had told him. And he learned about it like a minute or two before he was supposed to get off the train to go meet his adoring fans. So if you can imagine that heartbreak he must be feeling right before he has to go out and see everyone and smile. So the person he's with, he said, "What are we going to do?" And he said, "We're going to smile." And then he steps off the train, and the instrumental version of Smile is playing in the background. And that was just like, oh, that just hit me hard. Because, just imagine having to put all that down because people are expecting a certain, character from you, even in real life, even if it's not what you're portraying on the screen. Yeah. It's just, and he wasn't able to grieve. He just had to push that down. And it was just that got me a little bit. That was kind of hard to see.
Smile like a Chaplin song? Like, didn't he write it?
I don't know.
I think
I'll have to look that up. I know when I looked it up, I know Nat King Cole
has done a rendition, because I want to say that Michael Jackson was quoted as saying that "Smile" by Charlie Chaplin was his favorite all-time song.
You're right. It is a song by Chaplin. Yeah. I did not know that. So that makes sense why they use that there. Yeah. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and it is
that even song, hits even more harder. Thanks a lot. Huh? That even makes it even more monumental and heartbreaking. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And that's why I said like the three things, and I'm like, keep one of them, because typically when you have the entertainers that are like that, they're covering up some sort of pain. I mean, all humans are, but like particularly people who are entertainers who are like comedic or a lot of singers.
Yeah, that's very true.
They're masking a lot of that. And old Hollywood was just like insane. I didn't know that he was English, though. That's surprising.
That surprised me too.
But the performance by Robert Downey Jr., did he win an Academy Award for that, or was he nominated? Do you recall?
I do not know.
I think he was nominated. I don't know if he won. I do remember that was at like the pinnacle of his like in and out of rehab and like having difficulty like getting insured. And
exactly. I remember that.
Yeah. And it's interesting for like young people to know him as Iron Man and Tony Stark and like not know any of the history and like how remarkable it is that he was able to kind of overcome his addiction and become a superhero for people. Because he had definitely had like a dark past and has gone through a lot. So that's kind of cool that he's been able to do that. One of my favorite movies of Robert Downey Jr. where he full on like almost plays himself is Less Than Zero with Andrew McCarthy and Jamie Gertz. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's based off of a Bret Easton Ellis book, and great soundtrack. There's a song from the Bangles, Hazy Shade of Winter, that's like one of my favorite songs. Like it's a remake of God, I can't think of the two guys, Simon and Garfunkel. But they like rock it up because it's like a folk song, and the Bangles did the remake of it, and such a good movie. But in it, Robert Downey Jr. basically plays like a crackhead. And I imagine like it must have been really hard for him because like imagine struggling with addiction and then playing a character that's struggling
having
with
to play
addiction. Like I'm sure that played with his head, like and then like
it must have
holding a crack pipe and smoking a crack pipe and how like triggering, like how could you not be triggered by that and like want to abuse drugs again? Like it's crazy that he did that, but that's like one of my cult favorite movies is Less Than Zero. I recommend it to anyone that hasn't seen it. Such a good movie.
I also think of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. That's also in a movie where he almost plays himself in a way. He plays an actor, right? So that was a good movie. I enjoyed that one.
Yeah. So getting to like older movies that we kind of revisited, I wanted to see if we could have like a little moment of trivia where I got some quotes and I wanted to see if you could guess what movies they're from. And then you can
bring it on.
You can, if you have any that you know off the top of your head, by all means, try to stump me. Yeah. So the first one that I have, I think this one it'd be easy. I'm gonna start with the easiest one. So this quote is from a movie that I think speaks to our generation, and the quote is, "Well, Sinead Rebellion, shock me, shock me, shock me with that deviant behavior."
Rebellion. Sounds like something I should know, but I don't think that I do know.
So this is from another of like my cult favorites, and I think that it's like very Gen X. It's Empire Records with Renee Zellweger.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah,
yes,
and
I love that movie. Yes.
When Robin Tooney's character shaves her head and she comes out, and
Renee
Zellweger's character, they kind of have like a back and forth, and so she finally sees her. And I love that she calls her Sinead Rebellion. I love that line.
Yeah, that movie is great. I do love that movie.
Yeah,
it is a fabulous movie.
Okay, so this one,
I did find one.
What's that
for you though? Before I did find one for you.
Okay, all right.
Now it's a little more obscure, I think. Maybe no, I wouldn't call it obscure. It's from a movie maybe you've seen recently.
Okay.
So let's just go with that. And you probably get this right away. It's the good thing about evil people is that you can always trust them to do something, well, evil.
Cruella.
There you go. Yeah. Started easy.
And that it was a really good line.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. And she did such a good job with her accent, because when I think of like actors that bomb doing English accents, Keanu Reeves in Dracula comes to mind. But she was very believable, and especially when
I agree.
Her character sort of evolves into like Cruella. She does such a good job with like. And one thing that I didn't talk about the movie that I loved is like the little like nods that they did to the animated feature, like her hot rod, like, and her like body language when she's driving and how horribly she drives.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, and
right, and also her friend growing up, the Darling.
Yeah, Anita Darling,
and
the lawyer, and then they kind of another nod to that is like the two Dalmatians, that they introduced.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say when or how, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. I thought that was really cool. And then we did have one of the characters singing like her theme song from the animated feature, which was cool. Her henchmen, like there were so many like little nods to the animated feature that I thought were cool, but then they like turned the volume up like so much with like the whole punk aesthetic that I thought was really cool. So anyway, here's another quote that I have for you. This one might be, well, the other one I didn't think was difficult, but let's see if you can get this one. This one is hard. So the quote is, "Now I want to dance. I want to win. I want that trophy. So dance good."
Man, that's like right on the tip of my head.
So this is from a movie that has about 1,000 characters in it and has 1,000 memorable lines, but is super iconic for our generation. I know that you love the movie, but definitely our generation, and one of the all-time best directors, screenwriters of all time.
Is it Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo?
So it is Pulp Fiction. It's Mia Wallace when she's talking to John Travolta. They're about to
I can $5 milkshake. Yeah. Come on.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's hard, is because I chose like a really obscure quote from a movie that has 1 million lines in it that are like perfection. I know a lot of people don't like Quentin Tarantino anymore, but Pulp Fiction I think is just like nearly a flawless movie. It's so good.
Best soundtrack too.
Yeah.
One of the best soundtracks. Yeah, definitely. So this next quote I have for you, I have two of them. I couldn't decide. It's from really a a series of movies. So it's not just one movie. So one of them is from the first movie, and it's you're going to eat lightning and you're going to crap thunder.
Grease?
No, it's not Grease. It's more of a boxing movie, and this is told by the trainer to the star boxer.
Huh. Say it again.
You're going to eat lightning and you're going to crap thunder.
Rocky?
I just thought it was funny. Yeah, it's Rocky. It's his trainer, Mickey. He says that to him.
Very cool. So last one, and we can wrap up this episode because I think this is a great quote to end on. You probably won't get it, but it's one of my favorite movies, and I know a lot of my friends.
I hope I get it.
Huh? You won't get
I hope I get it.
Yeah, you're not going to get it, but it's so funny, and it's from one of my favorite movies of all times, and it's very quotable. And so the quote is, "You look so good with blonde hair and black roots. It's like not even funny."
So good.
Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion.
Love that movie. Yes. That movie's awesome. I remember watching that movie when it came out in the theater. Yeah.
When we were in Hawaii, we were talking about friends about how quotable that movie is. And
it is.
Between that and like Clueless is another one where there's like a ton of quotes. But Lisa Kudrow and Mira Sorvino are so good in that movie. Alan Cumming is so good in that movie. Janine Garofalo, Justin Theroux has like a cameo in it. There's so many good people in it, and their high school, like they're from Tucson, Arizona, which is like the most hilarious thing. That's obviously where I'm from. And I don't know why I said obviously, like that, like you can see it on me.
Yes, it's written on your face, Tucson.
But I always thought it was hilarious that it's like, my best friend from high school's name is Michelle. And so we always joke like, oh, that's like totally us, like moving from Arizona. And he briefly lived in California, and obviously now I do. And there's a quote in the movie like, oh yeah, like what, why do we feel like weird? Like we moved to California and they're still stuck in Tucson. And so I just think that's like one of the other funniest quotes of that movie. And it just makes me laugh like that, it's just like such a good movie. So anyway, that's one of my favorite quotes of all times.
Very cool.
Such a good movie.
Very cool. Yeah, I like that movie. Yep. Haven't seen it in forever. My goodness.
It's one of those
Doesn't that make you feel old?
Like, no matter what part it's on, I can start watching it, and it's like it's a dumb movie. It's sort of like The Water Boy is another movie like that I can just start watching The Water Boy whenever it's on at the time. That was another one that I was going to put a quote, do a quote from, but I thought for sure it would be too easy because it's like Adam Sandler, like it.
You can do it. Yeah. You can do it all night long.
Mama says that's the devil.
Mama says alligators are so ornery because they have so many teeth and no toothbrush.
I love the part where it's like the girlfriend and the mom's going back and forth, and she's like, well, did you know that he's got smelly feet? Men are supposed to have stinky feet. Well, did you know that he still wets his sheets?
That's him over there. Mama.
We have to do an episode on Waterboy, or like maybe like cult classic like comedy movies. Because there's
let's do that. Especially since Waterboy, like Adam Sandler movies. We could just do it on Adam Sandler, 90s movies like Happy Gilmore, Mr. Deeds, Billy Madison, all those movies before he became, well, I don't ever want to say he became too famous for those type of movies because he still makes those kind of movies. But back then, those were, where we got our laughs and lines from.
Yeah,
at least
it was such a goofy, stupid, like Gen X movies, and now he's like the elder statesman comedian, right? Like he's old, he's old, so he's like does a lot more serious movies, and then he does movies about being old, like an old guy. Like what's the movie he did with Salma Hayek where it's like married couples? I can't think of it. Where the little girl's like, I want to be chocolate wasted.
I know what you're talking about. Oh goodness.
Chris Rock is in it.
Yes, Grown Ups.
Grown-ups, yeah. Grown-ups and Grown-ups 2.
Yeah, with Chris Rock, David
Yeah,
Spade, Rob
yeah.
Schneider, the whole gang
Yeah,
from Saturday Night Live
basically.
gang. Yeah,
And I think that his
Kevin
movies are like
James.
slightly more like family oriented now. Like they're not as, or maybe I'm
Well,
just
it
like,
depends. I mean, some of them. I mean, think of like Uncut Jewels or Gems.
yeah,
I think it was. That was not family oriented. My goodness, that movie
yeah,
was.
his serious.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
Okay, well, I think with that we can wrap up this episode 25 of Pop Cult X.
Yeah.
My goodness, but yeah, I agree with you. Let's do a cult classic movie. Even we can go with comedic or genre or year.
Yeah.
Or actor or actors and his friends, because every Adam Sandler Happy Madison production has a constant character list that they pull from, which is cool because it gives them those actors work. But I don't know, you know what? It is cool. I enjoy that. I like that he always brings his friends along. And I'm not going to say anything bad about that because I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
If I make movies and I work with my friends and I have fun doing it and I enjoy doing it, I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So kudos to them for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
right on. Well, on that note,
so we'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening. Check us out on all our socials and hit us up, send us some comments, and we'll see you next week.